There are a lot of people who are connecting to their hybrid children in ships and crafts already. Those who know how to. The frequency of Earth is not yet, shall we say, aligned yet for some of those children to come down here without them having issues.
But I did hear you say in a Arcturian transmission that by 2027, we won't have the need to channel anymore. I would love to understand a little bit deeper of what that implies, because that's something that so many of us want to activate now, but really what is it when we don't need it? What does it mean for us?
27 will be a marker by which it'll be in 2 years' time, it'll be the consciousness of Earth will be such that you won't necessarily have to, I am now going to channel like the way I sometimes do. You can just have that consciousness come straight through, just speak like a normal person like we are now, but it'll look subtle. So I may be talking and I'm just going to switch my frequency a little bit. Okay, the information's coming in, but I'm still talking in the same way.
Alexander Quinn, welcome on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now globally and in your life?
What I'm most excited about at this moment in time is actually the comet Atlas that's currently coming into our solar system at this moment in time, because it is the third type of visitor that we have had of its kind, but it's behaving in an incredibly unusual way. It is a celestial object that came from our galactic central center, specifically from the Serpens Caput solar system, from when it was first actually initiated within our science, but it came from where our intergalactic center is. And that is something that is exciting me a lot at this moment in time. Not only just with the messages that the Arcturians are bringing forward regards what it means, what it's doing, where it came from, where it's going, how it's going to affect us, especially when it comes close to Earth. It's closest in 65 days. But also the Arcturian messages that are coming through regards it. So that's exciting me a lot at this moment in time. And aside from 3i Atlas, it's just an amazing time to be here at this in general, because some of the strongest, shall we say, spiritually starseeds and light workers came here for this time, especially after the harmonic convergence of 1987 in August the 16th, which was actually my birthday. So it's an incredible time, because we're going through this period of very extreme catalysts. The biggest changes are from 2012 to 2020. And that's partly because we're going through a very special place. Our Earth is going through the Alcyon ring, and it's a very special place of energetic space at this moment in time. And we're going to come out of it in 2030. And so the biggest changes in humanity are accelerating at this moment in time. Increasingly, the energies and the frequencies and the ascension symptoms and everything else. And so it's leading us up to, I would say, what would be the moment of contact in the years somewhere around 2030 to 2035, when things are going to stabilize out a little bit more. But we're currently in the fast lane. And people are feeling it. The energies are crazy. The ringing in the ears, the heart palpitations, things falling away that are not in alignment, jobs, relationships, things like this. And so all that is not a frequency match for an ascended planet is either asking for more authenticity to become in alignment with that, with the world soul and also the individual soul, but also a rising of the density that was once inverted to come back out through our holographic matrix to show us that which we are not in alignment with, so that it can fall away. And that is why sometimes these events are preceded by what people know as the long dark tea time of the soul, which I know you went through, from what I understand, and I've been through. where we have to awaken to our trauma, because you don't awaken to light first. It can sometimes initially feel like that, but you awaken to your trauma initially. And that's why it can feel traumatic, because you can't carry the burden of heavy bags into an ascended energy. You have to release it to become a frequency matched with that of the light that you wish to engage with. And the more you integrate that shadow or those rejected parts of yourself, both earthly and cosmically, the more you can fill that space with light, not only inside of yourself, but with your consciousness. And so when you say, what am I excited about? I'm excited about that, being that we are now in those final 5 years of very extreme acceleration before it plateaus out, the energies. And I'm excited about this comet, 3I Atlas, which is keeping me up very late at night at this moment in time, not only with its presence, but with the science, and the science behind it is just getting more and more fantastical as time goes by. So that is and of course, being on your show.
Beautiful. I mean, I was recently tuning into a transmission that the Arcturians put forward through you on your channel. And in that, they said that this is the greatest cosmic reset that your planet has experienced in over 10,500 years. And they brought up so much about Atlas and what is going on around that. One thing that I'll bring up, and maybe we could go a little bit deeper into this, is they said that should the 2012 marker be missed and the light quotient still be misaligned, then Atlas would arrive to complete the final recalibration alongside a series of comets acting as agents of transformation. So are we in the final recalibration in that sense?
Well, we are. Let's go back 10,500 years and talk about what happened there, specifically within the month of October, yeah?
I remember it like it was yesterday.
You know my work better than I know it. Approximately 10,500 years ago, specifically within the month of October, a very large comet was passing over what would effectively be the region spanning somewhere across the Cuban islands, Barbados, around there, and stretching toward the Mediterranean, but within the middle of that, yeah? And what it was doing was shedding. It was shedding massive particles of itself in huge chunks. And these massive chunks were coming down and smashing the Earth, or what was known then as the continent of Atlantis, 10,500 years ago, specifically within the month of October. And so that was a cycle that was all about endings and rebirthing and new beginnings. And there's also what led to some of the Egyptian gods and the Atlantean energies going into the Egyptian energies and so on and so forth, and Agartha, and that led to a whole lot of different encodings and time epochs. And so Atlas is a harbinger that was going to recycle Earth should we not make the marker, and we have. And so what it's going to do is it's not going to repeat the cycle of the Atlantean recycle of destruction. It's going to become an enhancer of energies. What is most interesting, and that cycle of destruction in Atlantis happened in the month of October 10,000, or what would be the equivalent frequency of October 10,500 years ago. And they say All Hallows Eve, the eve of All Hallows, all the souls that were lost. And that is a galactic forward throw that we now have, but we have commercialized or Disneyfied into greeting cards and things that say Halloween. And so really, there'll be those within the New Age spiritual community who go into fear about Halloween, because yes, there have been satanic acts and things that have happened, and there are certain circles and elites that have done bad things. But really, it's a forward throw galactically from the hallowed souls, or All Hallows Eve. And that happened 10,005 years ago when there was a massive destruction and a lot of souls left Earth. So it was a remembrance of those souls that were leaving Earth. And so Atlas is a harbinger that is coming forward to now enhance what we already have, to give us more codes. And when I channeled it from the Arcturians, it is a celestial body, because it comes from our galactic center. So it's also carrying a lot of consciousnesses on it, some physical and some non-physical. And it's 65 days away from our Earth at this moment in time. And when it gets close to Earth, the energy frequency on Earth is going to be very, very intense. And we're going to see a lot of lights up in the sky and a lot of very unusual activity. So I would say paranormal and extraterrestrial activity in our skies is going to increase about 1,000-fold around that time.
Wow.
So a lot of people, we've got Swan and we've got a whole lot of other comets that are all floating into our solar system at this moment in time. And it's not that we've got a sudden influx of all these comets, is that our solar system, let alone our consciousness and the world soul's consciousness, are at a frequency whereby it's not just that all suddenly we're getting a massive swarm, it's that we are actually at a consciousness frequency whereby we actually can become conscious of them now. These objects are passing through our solar system all the time. Some of them want to be seen and some of them don't want to be seen. They have their own celestial consciousness. But as we go into the timeline, these higher timelines, we're going to become more consciously aware of these masses that are passing through, and they're going to be a lot more. So I Atlas 3 is the third one that we are consciously aware of, that chemically and gravitationally and all in other ways with the elliptic plane that's coming in, which is a 1 to 10 million chance with the trajectory that's coming in because it's so unusual as it's probing all of our planets, is we're going to be seeing more and more and more of that. And we're going to be seeing more and more of that up until 2030, 2035, when we actually start getting a lot more open contact, but also when all the hybrid children that are on the ships and in underground bases and other places are going to start more consciously living in a more open way on planet Earth, linked to the Essassani and linked to the Yael and linked to different timelines of beings that we would know from Alpha Centauri and other places. And I don't want to get into names because some people will start going, but these ones are good and these ones are bad and these ETs are light and these ones are dark. And we have to stay out of these polarities. Otherwise, we're going to get caught up in inversions and galactic timelines that have been fed to us that are not real. So going back to what you were saying about that Arcturian channel, it is a massive cyclical timeline closure linked to more of a cosmic identity and moving us further away from Earth. And so if you look at the polarity, you're going to see these massive polarities play out. Yeah, look at Trump. Look at Biden. Yeah, America is becoming more and more divided all the time. Yeah, so these polarities are going to widen and widen and widen because they have to be ripped apart in duality in order to go up into the higher dimensionalities, 3, 4, and then all. So you get a lot of starseeds and lightworkers who go, we're going into the 7th dimension now, or we're going into the 7th density. I don't mean to burst anyone's bubble, but you can't just go into one density. That's why they call it multidimensionality. So we can certainly access higher timelines within density perception, but we're not just going into one density. We're not going into just the 7th density, although we can multidimensionally access all of them simultaneously at all times. But the ceiling is growing higher and higher and higher, and the collective ceiling is somewhere around some of the highest parts of the astral, which is high fourth. We're not yet a unity consciousness, multidimensional civilization, or what people call a 5D civilization, but we're certainly getting close. So Atlas is coming in as a harbinger to now enhance the energy, and you can see it as it's probing at a 1 to 10 million chance with the elliptical orbit as it's coming in. Very, very unusual as it's going past the planet. It's literally probing all the planets as it's going past. And at some point, it's going to go behind the sun. So we know it's going to disappear. And the Arcturians have told me what it's going to do is it's going to refuel. It's going to refuel. Then it's going to become trans-dimensional. And then it's going to go off through Libra and to the Leo constellation and disappear. And it's going to be recycling, shall I say, and enhancing other Earth timelines and planets like Earth that are also linked to, shall we say, colonies linked to the Anu. or other places that they have colonized that were not part of the cosmic agreement. And that's a karmic cleanup for the Anunnaki, but that is a whole nother show that we could do for about 3 hours. So we're not gonna have time to get into that today, but it's a much, this is part of something much, much bigger, but we're just seeing a smaller aspect of it. So does that just slightly touch on your question?
Our world is shifting faster than ever, and it's so easy to feel small in the middle of all of this. Imagine being part of a movement, a tribe that is not just talking about the change, but actually living it. That's why I created The Deep Dive, a living spiritual ecosystem where every single day we go on a journey to remembering our most authentic self. Our members have joined from all walks of their awakening, and it's been such a blessing to witness all of the soul relationships that are already forming. As a community, we start every day with simple, powerful activities, and we're beginning to start envisioning the kind of world that we want to experience. This is way more than exclusive content or just another spiritual Netflix. This is about integration and leaving behind a legacy. If you're ready to move beyond knowing into becoming, then visit the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen right now to learn more. I'd be honored to co-create history with you. 100% and more. And I know when it disappears in that sense, after it goes behind the sun, it's doing this karmic cleanup. I know you brought up before, and the Arcturians have brought up before, the Den of E. What can you tell us a little bit more about that in how this is all related to what's going on now?
Okay. My mentor said to me the other day, what's it like when you channel? I said, this is how I'm going to describe it. This is coming back to your question. I said, imagine when you wake up first thing in the morning, yeah, and you suddenly open your eyes and imagine, all right, Emilio, imagine you wake up in the morning, yeah, and imagine I'm there. Yeah, that would be slightly terrifying, probably, yeah. But imagine you wake up in the morning and I'm on the other side of the bed, fully dressed, by the way, and suddenly I'm
This
there.
is the PG podcast.
Yeah,
version. This is the PG version.
Yeah. I just need to clarify that because some people's imaginations might have been going off in one direction. But imagine you I'm suddenly there when you wake up first thing in the morning, and as soon as your eyes open, I say the alphabet right now. Quick, go, and you start going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, da 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 da, and then you get to the end. Now, 5 minutes later, when I say, do you remember saying the alphabet? You're like, yeah, I kind of remember saying the alphabet. I know I said it, but I sort of can't really remember saying it because I just woke up. That is what channeling is like. It's like you were there when it happened, but you're sort of not there at the same time. You're slightly removed. And therefore you remember everything. You don't remember everything that happened, and you do remember parts of things that happened. So when I'm channeling a message, I have to come back to it myself, and I have to read it myself, almost like my audience when I'm putting it out on my YouTube channel. I have to go back to it and go, oh my God, so what just came through? And what my understanding is the Den of E was the Anu or the Anunnaki linked to Ishtar, Nanan, Marduk, and some of the other players in the Anunnaki family had a base. They had a base in Mesopotamia, and they were experimenting within the DNA lineage within the Homo erectus. And so that's how we got that forward throw and some of the recessed negative energies that can't be found within the earthly timelines, within those bloodlines. And so the Garden of Eden, or the Den of E, which was the categorization of that certain, shall we say, genetic experimentation spaceport within the Middle East, or now known as Sumeria and Mesopotamia, was a place where they were messing with our DNA. Now, we know the Pleiadians have given us an extra chromosome, the 24th one, which is quantum, which is yet to be found. We know that the Anunnaki switched on certain parts of us. It took us down to certain more simple components. And now those components are now, through the energies that are coming in, awakening that 99% or that 98% so-called junk DNA that is now coming online increasingly. And so they also created a race of workers called the Ajiji. And the Ajiji were their workers. And they also held the recessed negative blood. But those were also linked to the Nephilim, who were huge giants. And so the Den of E is a place where they were creating a new type of human. And that is why within the evolutionary story, some of the Darwin people, they can't get a fix on that jump. How did we just suddenly get that massive jump? And from a galactic...
The missing link.
The missing link, yeah. And from a galactic perspective, that's where it's happened. But there are also, we are also part reptilian, we're part Anunnaki. We have Draco infusions, we have Pleiadian infusions. We have a high percentage of lots of different parts of species within our genetic makeup. Some of it's quantum, some of it's not. Some of it's in the unturned on part of our DNA. And that is why so many extraterrestrial races are so, shall we say, invested in us, because they have a genetic link within the quantum field that is in their real time, past, present, and future, linked to them directly within quantum entanglement. But the other big reason why the ETs are really interested and invested in us is because we are capable of manifesting source energy in a very specific way linked to our emotionality. I'm just going to say that again. Earth is a very special representation of what is known as the human race, or Homo luminous, increasingly as we become a Homo luminous being. Less carbon, more crystalline. And we portray or represent source through a very special way within our emotionality. And a lot of extraterrestrial races, they don't do that or can't do that. And so they're particularly fascinated by our emotional range. Also, its instability, but also how it presents itself through source. And that is why the hybrid children are also being created at this moment in time, which are linked to various lineages, both transdimensionally in different dimensions and timelines, linked to Earths that didn't exist and Earths that did exist and Earths that expired due to the 2012 marker not being made and us blowing ourselves, and ones that did. Because what we know is the Greys had to multidimensionally tunnel into different timelines in order to preserve themselves. And there are various, shall we say, manipulations of our genetic DNA that is currently being interjected into these hybrid children that will be coming and living more openly on Earth at this moment in time. And so the Den of E was really an Anunnaki spaceport, where Marduk and Nansinghurg and Mard and Enlil and Enki and all the Anunnaki royal family there doing their stuff. And that is also partly why the Middle East is so fought over, because there are so many secrets that are going to come out of the desert and the sand, just like the so-called 10 Commandments, which are a multidimensional, non-physical tablet, sure, but that is currently residing out of time or out of face underneath the Sphinx at this moment in time. And so the Anunnaki are genetically a part of us. We can't run and hide from it, because there is a naivety, and I say this with love, within the New Age spiritual community, that the reptilians are bad, the Arcturians are good, the Anunnaki are bad, the Syrians are good, and it's a naivety. And I'll tell you why, because it wasn't until I left the New Age and spiritual community that I finally started expanding. Because it's like saying, look at that cheese sandwich, that's evil. Well, I reached out for that cheese sandwich and I said, I'm going to take a bite and experience it firsthand. And it's not until you start channeling these beings directly and working with them directly, especially in client sessions, that you realize that the inverted narratives of what is good, bad, light, and dark and evil are diminished. They are diluted. And we're still holding on to these third and fourth D paradigms within the illusion of our perception of these beings and what really happened. And increasingly, as the hybrid children come to Earth and they're going to come to live with us, and more ET races, like the Pleiadians, who are going to make themselves first strategically known, they're going to give us more of our galactic heritage. And some of it will be known and some of it won't be known. And some of it will be what we think it is and some of it won't be. And so we really need to unlearn our prejudices regards our cosmic and galactic neighbors and what we think they really are, because all of their DNA is inside of us right now. So it's like saying, I want unity consciousness, but I want to be separate. I want to be part of source, but I also don't. I want to ascend, but I don't want to work with those unrejected parts of my cosmic self that are part of unity consciousness galactically. So there are a lot of different upgrades, physically, non-physically, galactically, genetically, that are in play at this moment in time. And it's causing havoc with people's consciousnesses and their bodies. And that's why we're getting ascension symptoms and aches and pains and flu, which is a frequency light upgrade. And the heart palpitations and everything else that's going on, and root issues, unresolved issues with the mother-father wounding, inner child issues, lower back pain, sacral issues, lymphatic, and the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. So you can usually pinpoint all these energetic frequency upgrades to various receptors in the light body and pinpoint where that density is coming up, why it's density, because this energy is not happening to Earth. It's not happening to starseeds. It's not happening to light workers. It is happening for them. And that is why some are saying, I can't handle this energy anymore. It's too much. The frequency is too much. And my body's not dealing with it. This energy is happening for the advancement, but it's not psychic attack. And but the ego can sometimes feel an encroaching energy coming in within non-physicality and go into fight and flight, because that is its encoding. It's meant to do that within a physical world, the parameters of those anchors. And so when it feels the encoding of something non-physical coming in, specifically linked to ascension energies coming out from our interstellar medium and also from our sun, and sometimes at the same time as our gravitational field of Earth goes down and the heliosphere, which are the veils going down, but more about that later. The ego can feel these energies sometimes coming in, and it doesn't like it, because what it does is to disengage those physical anchors into a more non-physical place. And the ego can sometimes perceive those things as a threat. I am now being psychically attacked. Yeah, I get it all the time with clients in my private practice. I'm being psychically attacked. Well, sometimes they are, but it's very rare, very, very rare. So Densities is linked to the Anunnaki. And if you look at the Anunnaki, they have also helped create certain languages all across the world. Look at Peanut, ANU. Look at certain months of the year, ANU. ANU is seeded in lots of different words in the English language. You see it everywhere. Anu, 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 everywhere. Our languages have cosmic encoding in all of them. For example, have you ever put written Earth 4 times? If you look at the writing of that, you can see heart, 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 heart in the spelling of that, if you start looking at it in the right way. And so we have to invert sometimes our language, our perceptions, and we really must unlearn everything in order to go back into source. Otherwise, our emotional and mental templates are going to be putting an inverted coding into something through conditioning, usually from a 3D 4-line paradigm. That is what we're trying to let go of. And so the Anunnaki themselves are currently going through a karmic cleanup linked to things that they did here between, should we say, 400 to 350,000 years ago. Because not all the Anunnaki or the Anu came to Earth to get involved in what was the experimentation of hominids. Only a small fraction came down here. And it was within the Anunnaki themselves. They said, you shouldn't have done that, brothers and sisters. So if you can imagine a small fraction of that extraterrestrial multidimensional race that come from the Swan constellation, Cygnus, which is why you get the black swan operations and so on, so on and so forth. It was a small fraction only of that consciousness that was down here playing God, but really it was only 1% of that. And so really we must do away with these ones are good, these ones are evil, da-da-da, da-da-da. And I only say that from experience, having channeled nearly most of these extraterrestrials within the 4,000 plus clients that I've had, because I've had to bring those energies through. And I will say one last thing that will be very, very controversial, but I say only with love and from a perspective of an experiencer. It is time to drop the naivety that the highest frequency is always the most loving one. It is not. I have channeled beings who, the highest frequency beings I have channeled, who are not necessarily loving. They can be impartial. They can be neutral. In fact, there are lots of extraterrestrial races who are passing through the solar system who are not even that interested in us, who have a very high frequency, but it is not necessarily one of love. And so within the New Age spiritual community, because they can't always diagnose through validation and confirmation what is good and what is bad, there is a natural necessitation to, within a safety paradigm parameter, fall into the most loving ones, because that is all we can manage in terms of place of safety, because we can't diagnose what's over here. And so that's safe. So we've got to stay in a box that it says the most loving ones are okay. A lot of these naives are going to slowly depart from the collective as we start to become more spiritually adult. Right now, we're graduates. And when we get to 2030, we're going to be, shall we say, not quite partners of our galactic setup, but we'd be more directors. But if you take 2025, my maths is terrible, but if you take 2025 and you go back to 2012, I don't know how many years that is, 2012 to 2025. But that number is how cosmically old we are at this moment in time within Ascension timelines. So we're youngsters. We're the new kids on the block, followed by the Pleiadians, who are about 1.3 million years ahead of us. And they were seeded by the Arcturians. And so you have these cycles of different races that seed each other. And I don't know, let me ask one sec. How many years from now until we become seeders of another extraterrestrial race? About 850,000 years from now, wow. Which is quicker than the Pleiadians did it, because our trajectory is much faster than theirs. We didn't have to go through nuclear annihilation, which they went through. We managed to subject ourselves away from that timeline within this timeline, but there is another timeline where we did do that, but we're not experiencing that one now. And therefore, we, in 850,000 years from now, in linear timeline, will be turning up in the skies of other planets in our craft. And they'll look up at us and go, look, Mum, it's an ET, it's a whatever, blah, 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 yeah? With their Sony cassette Walkman or whatever they had then, yeah? So we're going to eventually become the ETs in their skies in about 850,000 years, when we become part of all the federations of light and other things that are out there and so on and so forth. So we've got a little bit of a way to go. And people saying, oh yeah, but I want it now. I'm not going to be around, because I want to experience it all now. And what I say is this. In a lower density frequency energy, you had to go to the pyramids. You had to go to Glastonbury Tor. You had to go to Mount Shasta. You had to go to these places to feel these energies. But the energies now are as such that you can just be having a nice hot bubble bath with some lavender oil and you can tap into it now. Yeah, these frequencies are here and you can tap into them now at any time, at any place. You don't have to go to these hot spots to feel them anymore. And so the world soul will catch up, but the individual can get there immediately if they so wish. And so there are cosmic timelines playing out. There are earthly timelines out, like you were saying with the Den of Eve. And there are things that are cyclical. There are things that are culminating. There are new ones starting, and there are old ones that are coming around, and there are the ones that are getting closure. And so we're having a massive conversion of timelines at this moment in time. That is why, as the gravitational fields of Earth begin to go down, electromagnetic energy goes up, and we get a convergence of timelines, you're going to see that polarity being ripped apart, things getting more extreme, more extreme, more extreme. You have political things, Biden v. Trump, light V is dark, and it's going to get wider and wider and wider until they're ripped so far apart that the people on those timelines won't be able to even see each other at all. And they will become invisible to each other because they will have become such a frequency mismatch that they'll be so divided that they won't even be able to see each other. Have you ever been, for example, in a supermarket where you're looking at a shelf and someone just stands right in front of you, maybe, and you're like, can you not see me? That's because you have a higher frequency than them. They can't see you. You're out of phase with their frequency. And so that's going to continually happen with timelines. But as gravitational electromagnetic fields and energetic vibrations change, we're going to become more of a vibrational match for galactic time, which is multiples faster than binary linear Earth time. Because right now, all we have is a now. Yeah, when you do a DMT trip and you smoke DMT and you take that final hit and then you get what's called a crossover, you go into a state that is pure dimensional time where there is no linear time. And what that looks like is all facets of time and space all at once. So the best way would be to describe this is you have a TV and you're watching your TV. Yeah. All the channels are there. You can flick through any one you want. They're all there, but you're just watching one at that moment in time. But when you go into multidimensionality at a frequency rate that is so fast, you begin to see all the channels all at once. And the closest way that you can replicate that on Earth, if your viewers want to, is to stand in a circle of mirrors. You stand in a circle of 7 mirrors, and as you turn around and look at each mirror, you ask yourself a question, and you look at your holographic matrix on your face, and you look at the representation of yourself. And in every different mirror, as you begin to turn around, you'll see a different reflection of yourself in the space-time continuum. So if you don't want to smoke DMT and blow your brains out, stand in a circle of 7 mirrors, because every time you're going to have a different multidimensional reflection coming back to you that will be different from that before, and they'll show you something different. I've never tried it, but a client of mine did. And let's just say they were doing it for a certain amount of time, and they started seeing different cosmic counterparts reflecting back to them visually in the mirror. Oh. They saw a reptilian reflection eventually of themselves. Then they saw an Andromedan reflection of themselves. And so the energies are quite extraordinary at this moment in time. So I digress slightly from your initial question.
You mentioned these different aspects of ourselves. I know that you also have a simultaneous life in Arcturus. I don't want to butcher the name, but it's something along the lines of Iwat Ansha.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I wanted to ask you there, because what you just put through in that transmission, there's so much to unpack there, and we're going to start unpacking some things. But before, I want to get a deeper understanding into you and how you got to where you are. Who was Cynthia Crawford, and how did she help you open the channel to these beings?
Wow, you have definitely been doing your research.
Always.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive. Wow. Do you know what? I've never been in an interview where someone pulled that out. That is impressive. Do you also have my social security number and my address?
I have your address. I have your bank statement.
I have your bank details here. They are. Tell me why you have this number at the end. Cynthia Crawford was an incredible woman. She was an Anunnaki Zeta hybrid that was made in an underground test base in Area 51. So she was genetically. But
it's not the actress, right? It's not Cindy Crawford.
No.
Not the actress.
No. It's not the actress, although I wish it was. No. This lady was made.
I'm like, let me meet her, bro. Come on.
Yeah. But no, she was made in an underground military base in Area 51. And she, they eventually murdered her. She had a very mysterious death, but that's a whole another story. I'm not going to go into the NSA and other sort of black operations like that. But I was on a trajectory, and she was one of my first mentors. She helped me become conscious that I had an Arcturian emotional connection to another place. Then she had a very mysterious death. And I didn't get to advance there afterwards. So I had to, I knew I had an Arcturian connection. And so I said to my Arcturian connection, who I couldn't see and I couldn't speak to, or I couldn't channel at that moment in time, I said, hey, I'm in this place where I just met my mentor and now she's died and now I'm alone again, but I know you're there somewhere. How do we bridge this gap? I want to see you. I want to work with you. I want to channel you. I know what I want. Bring it to me. Show me. I was very, very clear, very, very intentional. And so that night I went to bed in feeling very distraught, having lost my mentor, Cynthia. And I suddenly started dreaming about spiritual churches. And Cynthia came to me in a dream and said, Alex, you need to go to a spiritual church in London because the Arcturians are waiting for you. So I woke up the next day and I didn't know how to get confirmation and validation the way I do now, direct. So I picked up my pendulum. In fact, I have the same pendulum here. And I picked up my pendulum and I said in a very, very basic way, because this is the only way I knew how to do it back then, do I need to go to a spiritual church? Yes. Is this where I'm going to meet the Arcturians? Yes. Yeah. So I went online and I found 10 spiritual churches in London where I live. That were the closest ones. And I just started going through them. I said, okay, is it this one? Is it this one pendulum? No. Is it this one pendulum? No. Is it this one? Yes. Okay. So is this one? So I have to go to the spiritual church because there's something there waiting for me that will help me connect to the Arcturian consciousness, specifically my simultaneous lifetime, about 2,300 years in our linearity ahead of us called Ir Wat Anshar, which is a parallel version of me in Arcturus. So I'm going to go to the spiritual church, and that is going to help me connect to the Arcturian. Yes. So I get in my car and I go to a neighborhood in London that, and I don't want to sound snooty or snotty here, but let's just say it's a neighborhood I would only ever drive through. I would not even feel safe even parking my car there. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to trust this. I turned up to this spiritual church and I walked in and nothing happened. And I thought, come on, guys. Come on, guys, you've led me all the way across London and now nothing happened. So I thought
April Fools,
April Fools. So I went home and I said to the Arcturian consciousness again, who I still at that point I couldn't see it, couldn't channel. I said, guys, really, are you joking? And they said, go. And I said, do I need to go back? And they said, yes. My pendulum was practically hitting me in the face. So I went back. And when I walked through that door into that spiritual church, a lady came up to me and she said, oh my God, it's you. And I went, thought she was talking to someone behind me. And she went, oh my God, it's you. And I went, what do you mean? And she said, hi, my name is such and such. I'm a medium. I've been a medium for 30 years. And I was told by my dead mother, who is one of my guides, that I had to come to this spiritual church and cross all the way across London because there was going to be a man with slick back, brown hair, black glasses, who looked exactly like my younger brother, who was going to help me connect to an Arcturian consciousness. But first, I was going to have to teach him how to become a medium, so that he could then go from a medium to a galactic medium and then cross over. And I went, well, you're never going to guess what? I was told by the Arcturian consciousness within dream state that I had to come to a spiritual church because I was going to meet someone who was going to help me connect to the Arcturian consciousness. And it blew my brains out. And so there it was. So she then taught me how to become a medium first. And then I used those abilities of mediumship to then become a galactic medium. And then once I could do that, I then learned from the same woman how to see what I'm looking at and channeling while I'm looking at it, not just feel it, but see it at the same time. And then all of a sudden I could see and talk to this little blue being who's about 5 feet tall, who's quasi-physical, who is a part of a collective consciousness, but is an individual called Iawatan Shah, who's an Arcturian being who lives in Arcturus. And I could see him all of a sudden. It was extraordinary. And I said...
What did you feel when you first saw him?
Pure excitement. Pure excitement. And I just said hi. And he said, hello. And he said...
In English.
It was coming to me in English, but don't forget, they use AI as a buffer, yeah? When I'm working with the Mantis, they just come in directly. So they use AI as a buffer, yeah? I just said hi, and he basically just said, I've been waiting your whole lifetime for this moment. We weren't sure we were going to get here, but finally we got here. We've got a lot of work to do. And it was at that moment in time that I just started after work, getting home every day, and then just going in and talking to this blue being, and every day opening up dialogue. And then when you open up enough dialogue, and you just naturally start channeling, because
what were those early conversations about? Just super curious.
A lot about, you need to be getting on with this work, and this is what you need to be doing, and you need to be doing reading and healing, and you need to, because I had a part-time job when I left the music industry. I was working in Nashville, and he said, that's got to go. And he was saying, you got to go public and and all this kind of stuff. So, when people are saying, I feel lost, or I've had a spiritual awakening, I don't know where I'm meant to be going. I literally had a blue being. He was saying, right, you've got to do this. Now you've got to do this. Now you've got to go here. And so it's been so easy for me to follow my life's work, because I just simply go in to connect to this Arcturian being. And I say, what next? And he goes, right. And he just starts pointing, and I just go. So it's made my life so easy since then. And it was around that time, after opening dialogue with this Arcturian being, and I just said to my friends and family, you know what, that's it. I'm going to start channeling extraterrestrials for a full-time living. That's when I lost, when I say this, it blows people's minds, but I lost 90, 80% of my friends and family overnight. Overnight. They thought I was crazy. But I was so in love with this Arcturian being that I could see and talk to. It just felt so like home. Mm. And so 90% of my friends and family just cut me out overnight. And because I wasn't a frequency match for them anymore. And then I became a frequency match for new friends and new family of light. And then I started doing this work full time. And it's really just exploded and continues to explode. And so when people say, I feel lost, I'm not a frequency match for my wife or my husband anymore, or for this job or whatever. The quickest and easiest way to hack into what your soul is trying to show you through your holographic matrix is to follow your highest joys and excitements to the best that you can, relinquishing expectation, because it'll be linked to your soul's derivative and expansion if you can follow the breadcrumbs without your ego trying to force a finality within logical or rational templates, which is the egoic template of physicality. This is not logical. I can't make a living out of this, blah, 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 blah. And the soul is saying, but you can and you will. Try it. It's like following the breadcrumbs. And I've got an incredible story about how you can follow the breadcrumbs to go to your soul's journey. But I'll take more questions if you got them before I get onto that. Otherwise, this is going to be like a 3-hour interview, yeah?
I did want to bring up there, because when you went full-time into this work, your first book was all about the Starseed phenomenon that you've said is actually currently exploding globally, and that you take people in that piece of work of the beginner level to the more advanced levels of the Starseed phenomenon. Where could you bridge in this conversation, what that phenomenon is and how it's playing out to the stories that you're sharing, the things that we talked about earlier as well, and where's the bigger picture in all of this around starseeds? Starseeds,
What's It All About was an amazing book that I wrote in 2016. luckily for me, Dolores Cannon's family picked it up and signed it, which is Ozark Mountain. So to become part of the Dolores Cannon family is kind of like a dream come true. I sent that manuscript to them, and the reply email was a publishing deal. So it was kind of like living the dream. And that book was all about what the phenomenon is about and where it's going. And really, it's quite simple. There's nothing complex about this. A lot of souls at this moment in time came to Earth because they knew it was going to be part of them being able to ascend an actual planet, but also help raise the vibration of this entire galaxy, because Earth alone is not just ascending. This entire galaxy is ascending at this moment in time. And so the reptilian consciousness is changing. The Anunnaki consciousness within Cygnus of the Swan constellation is changing. It is not just us alone, although we are, to some cosmic and galactic neighbors, the most interesting, because we are the masters of limitation. We come into the densest, most limiting energy. And from that perspective of amnesia, we work back into remembrance. And so it is not just about Earth. It is about Earth providing certain souls with a very specific galactic type of learning. And that is the environment in which they can do it in. It is also a fast track to cosmic mastery. If you can imagine Earth being one of the hardest schools of learning, very, very tough. So if you want to go to Cambridge or Oxford, come to Earth galactically, yeah? There are also incredible schools of light in the Syrian star systems in Canis Major, but that, again, that's a whole other conversation for another time. And so a lot of souls, shall we say, came here at this moment in time, specifically around the harmonic convergence in waves, the first wave, the second wave, the third wave, but specifically within the time zone of we're going through the Alcyon ring, this photonic ring of light that we'll pass through from the years of 2012 to 2030. So that they could work out of a dense dualistic encoding of limitation within an inverted matrix, back into remembrance, and help ascend Gaia back into a liberated state from which she has not been in for epochs of time, linked to all kinds of things and interferences and things that she wanted to not be a part of anymore within her own cosmic consciousness. And so there are also many souls, newer souls, that are coming to Earth at this moment in time to accelerate their own learning curves at this moment in time. And so it's really just a hotbed of accelerated vibrational energies to bring about those learning soul lessons and bring about the remembrance, but also help Gaia at the same time. And so as the frequency becomes higher and higher and higher magnetically, and the gravitational field of Earth goes down, allowing more of those light codes in. And as the heliosphere, which is what the sun projects as a boundary out just past Pluto, which stops the interstellar medium light codes coming into our solar system, as the heliosphere goes down, more light codes from not only our sun, but from the interstellar medium galactically are then pouring into our vibrational awareness on Earth. All veils are going down. And so it's going to make people more psychic. It's going to make them more switched on. They're going to have more clairabilities. They're going to have more remembrances. They're going to have more of that galactic part of them being switched on. Oh my God, maybe I'm not from here. Maybe I do have an emotional connection to Dolphinus. That's why I love dolphins so much, for example, or whatever, yeah? It's a remembrance of who we are from beyond the stars, because you can look into the night sky and mathematically it has already been synthesized through mathematicians that there are more stars in the observable and non-observable sky than there are grains of sand on every beach on planet Earth. And so the Goldilocks zone is that magical place where Earth is not too hot, not too cold, and we got water and we can exist. So if you take the maths of that and you put it out in terms of a mathematical equation, in terms of all the other Goldilocks zones, and that's just within the physics and the biology that we understand, projecting our humanness onto that equation, then there are millions of other civilizations that'll be out there. But don't forget, that's just a humanism projected onto the consciousness that we know. On Arcturus, they don't have water. So they have a different physicality, and some are quasi-physical and some are not. And so if you take all of those other consciousnesses and all of those other civilizations that are non-physical and operate outside of the human projected understanding that we have, there are billions of civilizations out there. But Earth was a quarantine place up until 2012. Now it's a place where humans, using consciousness and intentionality, are allowed to, shall we say, connect. And if they're allowed to connect, can then have a connection increasingly. But Earth is a very hostile place. It's really not the reptilians or the Anunnaki or, these evil aliens that did all these terrible things to us, supposedly, that we need to be worrying about. It's Earth. Earth is a very hostile environment. It's people of Earth we need to be worrying about, yeah? And, for example, our airspace is one of the most hostile airspaces. Some of these ETs try to come in with their ships, and we have certain TRB-3s and man-made extraterrestrial reverse engineered craft trying to shoot them down. And so it's really humans we need to be worried about, because the ETs, if they wanted to have us gotten rid of, our planet would be gone by now, poof, in a smoke, yeah? And just while we're talking about planets disappearing, there are certain civilizations that have the consciousness that can psychically make an Earth implode within split seconds. And when I channeled what really happened to the dinosaurs, this is going to be a stretch far too far for too many people. But
I'm ready for this one. I'm ready.
That was not an asteroid that blew up. That was something that our consciousness would understand as a nuclear attack or a nuclear explosion.
By who?
I don't know. But I will channel that and look into it for you. And so the starseed phenomenon really are seeds of cosmic and galactic consciousness coming down to Earth and seeding information. Imagine a root going down into the soil. One root goes down, then it spreads. If you go to a forest, all the trees' roots eventually interlink and intertwined, and you get a unity consciousness. So one tree dies, a couple of meters down there, all the other trees know that it's dead. There's a unity consciousness, collective consciousness within all the trees. As more seeds are being created down here with consciousness, it's spreading like those roots of trees. But it's happening energetically, telepathically, non-physically, and genetically. And so all these seeds, the first waves, the second waves, the crystals, the rainbows, and all the rest of them, are planting these energetic seeds, not only within our chemistry and non-physicality and within the electromagnetic grids, but also within the crystalline grids, the Gaia grids, and the land itself. And so the land itself is massively changing at this moment in time. And so we're getting ascension symptoms. Gaia is getting ascension symptoms as well. We're having these big earthquakes that are happening at this moment in time as she is restructuring herself tectonically, yeah? And so we're seeing more volcanoes going on, so on and so forth. And so that's going to calm down after 2030. And so really the starseed phenomenon, or the light worker phenomenon, is just a remembrance of our galactic self and then embedding that into the collective consciousness in order to change processes, establishments, and inverted timelines that were epochs of struggle in dense energy for us, so that it can be reset and taken into an ascended energy, which is what it always should have been.
With that phenomenon, there will be new abilities coming back online. We talked about the clairs, the telepathy, but I did hear you say in a Arcturian transmission that by 2027, we won't have the need to channel anymore. I would love to understand a little bit deeper of what that implies, because that's something that so many of us want to activate now. But really, what is it when we don't need it? What does it mean for us?
Great question. Well, you're channeling right now. Did you know that?
Somewhat.
Well, your soul, yeah, which is a piece and a part of Creator Source, or soul, as we call it, yeah, is a fraction of it, or something that would be a very small tenth of that energy, because not all of it can fit into a carbon body, otherwise you would actually combust. But a very small fraction of what is called the soul is embodied into your physicality at this moment in time, and you are channeling it. Ego turns it into personality. Soul turns it into intuition and heart and feeling and so on and so forth. And so just remind me what the question was again.
It was all around us not needing to channel anymore by 2027. Yeah.
And so increasingly, more of your encoding is going to be switched on. And more of your actual soul is going to be able to fit into the tight space of a physical vessel. It's like the soul, certain consciousnesses are trying to get into a physical body. It's like trying to squeeze a massive thing into a very small thing. And so 27 will be a marker by which it'll be in 2 years' time, it'll be the consciousness of Earth will be such that you won't necessarily have to, I am now going to channel like the way I sometimes do. You can just have that consciousness come straight through, just speak like a normal person like we are now, but it'll look subtle. So I may be talking and I'm just going to switch my frequency a little bit. Okay, the information's coming in, but I'm still talking in the same way. So it'll increasingly, channelers will become more subtle. They won't have to go into channel as much. They'll be able to just talk normally, but have that perception with that other consciousness coming in from somewhere else in real time as a piece of themselves, as opposed to something that is external coming in. And so it'll be more unified as opposed to an externalization.
I was just going to say, even though in that process right now, when someone goes into their process and is channeling, it helps the ego sort of differentiate the frequency that's coming in.
It does. Yeah, it does. I used to have to, running a private practice with clients forced me to be able to have to go in straight away, because it's often when I'm sat in front of a client doing energy work, they'll say, what's this? And oh, good. Do you know what? I don't know. I'm going to have to ask my Arcturian right now. So having client sessions forced me to have to be able to go in instantly, because otherwise, every time a client was sat with me for a very short space of time, I would have to go, right, I am now going to have to go into a channeled state so I can get the answer, and time is money. And my clients think, they go, I've just paid you this money. Like, we need the answer now. So that taught me to go straight in. So usually if I'm going to channel, sometimes I just speak a little bit of light language and I just pop straight in. It's pretty quick. And sometimes a message will come through. I'll do it live, and sometimes I write it down if I'm in a cafe or something, because it might look a little bit weird if I'm in Starbucks or somewhere and suddenly a message is coming through and I'm speaking in a strange way, like I have an Indian accent, and a lot of people are going to be looking at me. But going back to your question, it's going to have a stronger unification. So you can go straight in, and people will be able to do it more easily with their eyes open as opposed to closed. So that is what that meant.
And going back to where we started this, the hybrid children that you mentioned, what will our relationship to those transform into, and why haven't we established that connection with what you're calling these hybrid children yet or before?
There are a lot of people who are connecting to their hybrid children in ships and crafts already. Those who know how to. The frequency of Earth is not yet, shall we say, aligned yet for some of those children to come down here without them having issues. let's put it this way. Pardon me. Let's put it this way. An autistic child, yeah? An autistic child is that where they have such a high frequency, they can't embody all of that frequency within the physicality. And so they can't place it into the physical template of the ego. They can't ground all of that energy into a physical consciousness, because most of it can't go into the mental template. Now, there are different types of autism. And so within a dense energy or an energy paradigm that is not a conducive for a type of a more advanced consciousness to actually be in that energy, it can create conduiting issues. Like, for example, that can sometimes be experienced as autism. So we need the frequency to be closer to that which is not going to create conduiting issues, or what would be effectively something that would be like autism for these children when they come down here, so they can actually be in a frequency that would be easy for them to ground that consciousness actually into the grids and actually be usable when they're down here. And increasingly when they come down here, they'll be living in communities. Governments might know about it. I'm not 100% sure, but they'll be living in communities and they'll be going out more and more, and they'll be amongst us. There are some that are already amongst us. There are already hybrids amongst us now, but they'll be coming increasingly more and more and more and more. And they'll be linked to programs. I've had a lot of clients where they got pregnant for 2 months and then the fetus disappeared. And they couldn't tell their husband because they didn't want to think that they were going mad, yeah? So there are also a lot of people who have had so-called abduction experiences. But you have to remember that our food chains are poisoned, are contaminated. We have a lot of plastics, aspartame, sugars that are not natural, sweeteners, preservatives, additives in our food sources. We are practically being poisoned every day with even some healthy foods have pesticides on them. So it's hard to eat healthy on Earth. And when some of these people are going on these ships or having so-called abduction experiences based on parts of their unresolved or rejected fears, traumas, or conditionings, linked to certain poisons and toxins that are coming from our food chain, sometimes those experiences can sometimes come through as something that is traumatic, as opposed to something that is an agreement that we were linked to regards a hybridization project that we agreed to do prior to coming here. And so sometimes people who have those experiences say, oh my God, but it was terrible. But it actually wasn't. It was only their perception of that moment in that moment in time linked to certain rejected parts of their psyche, unintegrated parts of their shadow, but also toxins and poisons within the body that also don't help with the perception reality of what actually really happened. And so in the same way that when certain clients might see the Andromedans for the first time as a black shadow, it really is the Andromedans. It's a beautiful ninth dimensional, non-physical collective consciousness from the quadrant of Andromeda. But they are showing themselves as a mirror because they are mirroring back those parts of the rejected consciousness to that person. And so they are being perceived as a black shadow, so that that person can see more of themselves in order to release it, to become a frequency match with that civilization. It is not that they are a black shadow. They are merely seeing the mirroring. And that is why it is so critical as we go up into these higher frequency energies to not project back onto the mirroring, because it'll be your holographic matrix. Or should I say, your soul being reflected back to you within your physicality to show you what it is you're putting it out, what is you're putting out there, and what it is you need to grow and learn from. And so we must not keep going into, I'm being psychically attacked and this terrible thing happened out here, but internalize it. So you can do the inner work, because galactic expansion and happiness is an inside job. It's an internal job. It's not a projection. I don't know whether that makes sense or not.
It makes complete sense. Makes complete sense. I would love to know if there's a space for us to connect with your Arcturian self Iawat Ansha, and maybe any messages that would like to come through there for the collective, for what's happening and unfolding right now in our current ascension program and process, that you'd be willing to hold the space for. Okay,
I have a funny feeling they want to say something about you, by the way, as well. But let's see what happens. I can feel them knocking at the door now. Hello, Emilio. Andromedan connection. We thank you. We greet you. We know you already with your Andromedan connections. It was they, the Andromedans, who created what your your tea time of the soul within your educational processes in those years that you followed through. It was the Andromedan connection, that Andromedan part of that created that paradigm shift within your education process that halted your perception of reality, that awoken you to your trauma to allow you to integrate those parts of your rejected self that needed to be transmuted to allow yourself to integrate the light upon which you are currently threading through these transmissions at this moment in time. We also wish to speak about I3I Atlas. This is a consciousness, a celestial consciousness that comes from your galactic center, from Sagittarius. It is currently, at this moment in time, harboring other consciousnesses of physicality and non-physicality that are, shall we say, hitching a ride at this moment in time. Do not be scared. This is a moment of integration, of enhancement. As this vehicle has already said, the polarities within your this is a interfacing issue. They're trying to figure out how to say this. Your polarization will dramatically increase. Be sure to follow your hearts at this moment in time in order to make sure through your loves and your passions that you are following your soul's expressions in order to co-create more of that which you wish to align with an ascended planet at this moment in time. The Pleiadians will be one of many, will be the most obvious to your experiential perception at that moment in time around 2032 when they are arriving more openly. And yet a lot of the, shall we say, traffic that goes by your galaxy is Pleiadian. But there are many ships of different varieties, many cloaked and many using your sun and many protecting the energies on your earth at this moment in time to help ease the energies so that they are not too great. You are consciously going through the world soul depopulation at this moment in time. Many have already finished their missions on earth at this moment in time, and more will leave. Earth does not need the amount of souls that it has procreated at this moment in time. You are in a depopulation event, not because of elites procreating, but more because souls have come what they have come to do. And so we leave you at this moment in time. Follow your hearts, for they will never do you an injustice in the wrong direction if you can negate the fear, conditioning, and trauma of the egoic mind through rationale and logicality that would say otherwise to your heart's contents and desires. Trust when the heart says turn right before the logical mind encounters you in wanting to go left. Trust your hearts, your galactic souls are turning on. as you become galactic citizens. Dekati koshishakataren goshishitiga ndwa. Oh. Yeah, a little bit of gas. Sometimes when they leave, there's some stuck energy just suddenly comes out at the end. And I am back.
How are you feeling?
Like I had a very strong espresso. It's like suddenly getting into a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And the person driving puts their foot down and you suddenly start going like this. You're like, it starts coming at you very, very quick. But it's fun. It's very exciting. It's a great feeling. In fact, you can't always remember what you're saying, but you know roughly what it is that you said. But it's a lot of fun. And you know what? Channeling and energy work is fun. You know, when people say, oh my God, but I've got to do this work, and I've got to release the mother wounding, and I've got to release these issues from my root, which is my legs, my feet, my blood, my teeth, my bowels, my lower back. You know, it's going to be, you know, energy work should always be fun. Channeling should always be fun. Keep it fun, is what I say.
Yeah. They revealed in there something about the Andromedan connection when they started coming through for me. So that was a special message, and thank you for bringing that through.
They actually revealed that to me before this interview. And I didn't want to say anything because I knew that they were going to want to say it themselves. So that's why when we were doing our pre-interview chat, I said, let's wait and see when they come through and they'll say it themselves. But yeah, that was an Arcturian interjection that you had. Sorry, an Andromedan interjection. Anyway, we'll talk more about that another time.
We'll get into that for sure. They also brought up something very interesting, which is something about a soul depopulation that I wanted to maybe explore a little bit with you and what that really means, because they kind of brushed it over. But I'd love to know what that means in your perspective.
I don't know. Let me ask. It is linked to something to do with Earth being a staging place where souls can come and go and learn their lessons as many times as they wish, in as many scenarios as they wish, and as many times as they wish, working through their karmic cycles. And that staging ground in terms of Earth's timeline is done. It's finished. It's over. And because of that, the karmic cycles, karmic patterns are not going to follow through into souls that are now reincarnating into Earth. They do not have to go through karmic patterns anymore. There is no more karma anymore for new souls that are now coming in. And so Earth's recycling of those constant timelines, of learning timelines over and over as a staging ground, does not need to operate in that way anymore. And so from what I understand, you don't have to come in with karma anymore. And because you don't have to come in with karma anymore, and you know what how they show me? They show me a Chinese child who's 4 years old who can play Mozart. They just come straight in with what they learned from the previous lifetime. There's no karmic cycles anymore. There's no having to start again. They bring that Akashic information through the emotional template as a driver that's pushed through genetically, and then the remembrance comes through. They bring it through from the previous lifetime, and boom, they're knocking out Mozart at 4 years old, and they can play perfectly. And that's why some of these kids are coming in smart already.
I've met a few of them actually in the last couple of months, and these are children that, for example, I had one of them tell me, I know over 100 different languages, galactic languages. And I was speaking to their mother, and she has some other children as well. And I asked her about that, and she says that once they reach a certain age, because of the schooling, because of the societal pressure, they kind of block those remembrances. So do you feel like there'll need to be a systemic change also to not allow these children to block those abilities that come through from such a young age, and they can just continue with that through their whole life.
Absolutely, because the educational systems on planet Earth at this moment in time are not adapt to children like that. So children like that will eventually be the ones in the school classroom who are the so-called problem children, the ones who are highly creative or slightly on the spectrum or learn in a different way, or they like learning things pictorially or through images or through play. And so they will reject those educational systems. And they will be the ones that will go on to create new educational systems, new political systems, amongst many other things. And they'll go into finance as well and create new financial systems. And so it's the ones coming in that are going to change and break down the paradigm systems. But some of them will do it in a subtle way and some of them will do it in a rebellious way. But not all of our educational systems can handle indigos and other children like this at this moment in time, because they don't have the processes, shall we say, to deal with a consciousness like that. It's still repetition learning, and you have an exam and you learn this thing, and this is algebra, and then one sentence goes in front of another sentence, and that's English, and it's going to change. You know, the hybrid children are going to come in and just smash all of that away. And so you're right. We don't have some of the infrastructure to fully allow these kids to become their full selves. And some of them do then become insular. But then they'll use their energies to do it in creative ways. So they'll get around it eventually. But some of the problem children, some of these classes, they have a consciousness that wants to expand, but it can't, because of an old linearity is saying it must be done this way. One brick goes on top of another brick. This is how we've always done it. And now at the end of the year, there's an exam. Yeah. And I hated exams at school. I hated them. Yeah.
All of us. I don't know a single person that genuinely enjoyed like sitting down to take an exam with all the pressure and knowing that, you know, your classmate might do better than you, and, you know, all these things that introduce the competitive lens into our programming.
I'll let you into a secret. At school, I failed all my exams. I failed all of them apart from music. That was the only one I passed. And I was highly dyslexic, and they said, you're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. Blah, blah. One of them even said, Quinn, you're never going to be anything. Yeah.
And then those beliefs, when we're so perceptive enough, we actually grow up believing them.
Yeah. So for anyone watching, don't worry if you fail all your exams and drop out of school. It doesn't mean anything. For any parents watching this, they're probably going, oh my God, don't listen to that information. You need to get straight A's. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Has there ever been a question that you've wanted to ask the Arcturians that you still feel you don't have the answer for?
No. So I tell you why?
Yeah.
Because, let me put it this way. If they can't tell me, or if I can't channel it to me, they'll show me visually or pictorially. And if they can't then do it that way, they will then use my holographic matrix, or should I say my physical environment, and put something there to then show me that way. Like a surreal synchronicity, for example. Like I may be going somewhere and thinking that I'm lost and thinking, why am I here? And then suddenly I turn a corner and I'll see something. Let me give you an example. Yeah. So, I just moved to this new place in London recently, and I was walking around. I was lost and I didn't know where I was. And we live by the River Thames in Richmond. Now there are certain parts with the tides of the moon where the river comes in, and you get locked out of certain walkways on the river. You get locked out. And so this walkway that the river goes back to my home along the river, I was locked out because the tide had come in, and it goes over the path. Yeah. So unless you enjoy getting really wet,
your bathing suit on.
Yeah. Unless you want to go for a swim with the swans, I couldn't go down there. So I said to the Arcturians, I said, oh my God, I don't know how to get home because I haven't lived here very long. So I just said, can you just guide me home? So I started walking, and I didn't get at my GPRS on my Galaxy Ultra S4. I just thought I could just see if I can figure it out. And I started going down this road, and I thought, this cannot be the right way. And I said, Arcturians, can you just give me a sign of going the right way? And I turned a corner, and I kid you not, I've even got a picture of it. I don't have time to get it out my phone now, but I turned a corner, and spray painted on a massive concrete wall was the word Starseed in huge writing. And I went, thank you. And I turned and I went down there, and that road led me all the way home.
Wow.
So these consciousnesses will come through in dream state. They'll come through in your holographic matrix. They'll come through people sometimes. Sometimes they'll come through events. Sometimes they'll come through a channel message, or sometimes they'll come through imagery. But if I don't understand what it is that I'm asking them, I'll say, show me a different way then. Show me this, show me that, or tell me this, or give it to me through a person. And I'll keep asking until I get it through another medium, through another format. And I always get there eventually. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But in answer to your question, is there anything I've ever asked them that I couldn't get the full answer to? No. Sometimes you get a little bit of a formatting issue because they're using AI to use their consciousness for it to come through so that I can understand
like the interference issue that happened when you were just channeling.
Yeah, it's more a formatting issue. So
interfacing
issue. Let me put it this way. They would not be able to describe to us what some of the highest frequencies of the higher heart are really like to experience, because it would be like for us to experience a color we've never seen before. So sometimes there is a formatting issue in trying to translate it into the frequency of English. And that's why I'm like the cat indigo shisha shata gabataro shisha. Yeah, okay. Well, they're trying to give it to me the best that they can in my very basic articulation of the English language, which is like like stupid to them.
That's so interesting because you brought up that they use AI in these sort of ways, and in the last 3 years, AI has come into our reality pretty prevalently in all systems, in education and entertainment and really all spheres of life. In what ways do these beings relate to artificial intelligence that maybe we can get inspired by? Because right now, some of the ways that we're using it are actually more disempowering than actually empowering us.
One way that more quantum AI, look at a car, yeah? A car can take you to A to B, or someone can get behind a car and they can drive it into a crowd, creating devastation. It's a tool only. But let me put it this way. They use AI in a quantum way to assimilate their consciousness to a craft. So they can use their consciousness without all this basic stuff, which is buttons. Yeah, we're pushing buttons to make things happen. Yeah, they don't need to push buttons to make things happen. Yeah, they're using their consciousness with types of metal that we don't have on Earth at this moment in time, which have a very special quantum characteristic that bind to a certain frequency that is linked to what AI bridges. So they can tap into that quantum frequency, which is a very special type of AI, as a bridge to bridge it to the craft. So they're using consciousness. Let me put it this way: as they're in our ionosphere, they can go right turn direction at 10,000 miles an hour and do a right turn, which is what our F-16s, our Raptors, and our F-35s are seeing in our airspace. They're not using this junk. They're pushing a button and going right, turn left. Yeah, they're using their consciousness through quantum AI to interface with things. And so they also do it as a bridging gap for languages as well when they're speaking to us. But increasingly we will use AI to shall I say, solve diseases, because it'll give us a certain type of sequencing to solve some of those genetic mysteries at a power capability that we have not had so far. And so it does have lots of, in my humble opinion, lots of very positive uses. And I believe increasingly it will be used for positivity. And I'll tell you why. Because look at the Israeli war that just finished recently, or is finishing, right? In an old energy consciousness, especially to 2012, what is going on in the Middle East and with Ukraine, that would, in an old energy paradigm, likely would have gone into a World War III scenario with the consciousness that we had then, in terms of light-dark quota. In a higher energy consciousness, there are going to be fewer wars. In fact, the Bible actually says, I don't know what chapter it is, but the Bible actually quotes, and in the book of Enoch, it actually quotes that the very last war to end all wars of all time on earth would be that in Israel. And I asked the Arcturians this. I said, was this the final war? Was this the biblical war? Was this the one in the book of Enoch that the Bible also speaks of? And the answer was yes. So this war that has just finished in the Middle East would be the final war of all wars, to end all wars, to take us into an ascended planet. Now, that's already in scriptures. I don't have to be the one to burst the bubble on that. But as we go into an ascended consciousness, there will be fewer wars. And as we go into an ascended consciousness, we'll be using a level of mastery to use these tools in a way that is more, shall we say, of the light. And therefore, I have no fear over AI or where it's going, because used in a higher consciousness in an ascended planet, it will be used for abundance and love and light and all that kind of stuff, for good things. But in an old consciousness, it could have easily been used for control and to create more fear. And so, yes, AI can certainly be used in a way that is not of the light, but it depends in which consciousness state and perception it is used in. So if you look at where we are now, it is very likely not going to be used in a way that's bad. And therefore, I personally think it's going to be a very good thing, allowing, especially when it goes quantum. A car, a car can take you to A to B, or a car can be driven into a crowd of people. It's not dark or light. It's the consciousness that is used at that moment in time. So I'm excited for it. It's here and it's coming, and I think I can't wait to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, I think we definitely need that positive message and perspective on AI, because especially in the spiritual space, there has been a lot of division and perspectives over that. So, Alex, I know I could talk to you for the next 3 hours.
Shall we?
Let's go. No, but I do feel that this is the beginning of many, many, many conversations with you. I feel just so much heart resonance with the work that you're doing and the message that you carry for humanity. We end every show with a segment called The Final Trio, which are some questions that we like to ask at the very end. Before that, where would you send people to connect with you, your work, and everything that you're putting out to humanity?
Well, the first thing I would say is, if you can connect with the Arcturian consciousness direct, then you can cut me out. You don't need me, although my information is fabulous. But if you can learn to go to the Arcturian or your star family directly, then you cut out the middleman. And that's really, I always try and teach my clients. They say, can you channel the message for me? I say, let me teach you how to channel. If you want to read my book, which it's called Starseeds, What's It All About? It's literally everywhere. About a year and a half ago, it went into the top 10 globally on Amazon in the fields of New Age, spirituality, and channeling. It's dipped a bit since then, but it's still a great book. And you can check me out on YouTube, which is Alexander Quinn Starseed. You just type my name, Alexander Quinn, and I'm all over YouTube. So by all means, watch my. This is what I'll say. Yeah, my publisher is probably going to die when they hear me saying this, but You don't need my information. You don't need my book. You don't need my channel. You don't need Alexander Quinn. You don't need anything I say. You don't need me or my information. Go direct to source or channel these beings and go direct and get the information. I'll be around to help get the Starseeds and the Lightworkers give little nudges in the right direction, but you don't need me. You don't need Alexander Quinn. Everyone has the power to be able to go to source direct. And the more people that can go directly and cut people like me out, yeah, because I'm just a permission slip, yeah, like psilocybin or ayahuasca, that's just a permission slip. You don't have to use those things. Consciousness is king. Consciousness can heal. Consciousness can heal that which it created issues, yeah? And so, by all means, use the permission slip of Alexander Quinn, but really, you don't need it.
I love that. I mean, you don't hear a lot of people actually say that out loud, and I feel that it just shows the humility with which you do this work with, and knowing that, you know, none of us here, both you and me, are special in any way, and there's no need for any pedestals. When I started this journey, especially in the personal development space, I put a lot of these figures that I would see online in this light, and obviously it's really great to have inspiration and to see people and get inspired by them. But at the same time, like, all of that is within you. That's why the podcast is called Just Tap In, because it is inside you. So I love that you brought that message. So
and anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. My client today, when I said to her, I will teach you how to channel your root and go in there and see what's in there. And she said, oh my God, I don't know if I can do that. I said, yes, you can. You just, it's like a bicycle. You don't realize you can ride it until you get on it,
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we need that push of someone to believe in us. So thank you for being that for others. And for the final trio, the first two questions are personalized to the guest, and the last one we ask at the end of every show. So the first one I have for you, Alex, is what quality in the human convinces you that ascension is inevitable?
Well, it's the heart and soul. It can't be anything else. When the heart and soul is fully integrated and does not project back onto the mirroring and internalizes more of itself, working through its rejected parts of its unintegrated shadow, then source is then working purely through the world, soul, and that individual at that moment in time. And so it can't be anything other than the higher heart, love, and the soul's essence with source working through it.
What is the greatest truth bomb that you would like to leave with us today?
The Anunnaki are not evil and the reptilians are not evil, and it's a naivety within the spiritual New Age community that needs to be let go of. We have to let go of these narratives of good and bad and light and dark, and evil aliens ruined it for us, and evil aliens did this and it's their fault. No, we're an ascending civilization. We need to take ownership now. We need to take accountability now, instead of blaming it on an evil ET or the Greys did it to us. So we're becoming adults. Galactically, we have to now take accountability for this planet at the galactic level and stop putting blame here and putting blame there. And so when Starseeds and Lightworkers and people in the New Age spiritual community can stop going, well, these ones are evil and da-da-da-da, and it's going to happen so much faster. So a lot of the people, there are certain people on this planet who make out that they are the most, certain within governments, say I'm the most loving, most love and light person, are sometimes the most nefarious. And so we have to be in a place of compassionate detachment and observational neutrality in order to have deliverance over our what is real and what is not real, beyond our fear, traumas, and emotional triggers, and allowing our emotional and mental bodies to dictate and override what actually is really stood right in front of us.
Beautiful. This last question, we call it the time capsule question. It's really a question about legacy. And I'll explain a little bit about what that means. Let's say we travel out a little bit into the future, around 15 to 20 years down the line. I chose out those timeframes because I believe that's going to be a time in history when the young generations of today are going to be stepping up into leadership positions around the world and really spearheading us into this new epoch, this new era for humanity, the golden age for many have been prophesizing for. And you had the opportunity to leave something behind for these leaders when the time was right. And in the form of a time capsule, you can include anything that you want inside, something non-physical, physical, whatever your imagination can conceive of, but knowing that what you leave behind is something that will allow and help these next generations of leaders to be able to transition humanity into this golden era, golden age. What would you leave behind for your human family? Something that is really special to you, to your heart, and that would leave the legacy behind of the work that you're doing?
What I would leave behind is something that is out of phase and not in time, something that is non-physical. I would leave a part of my consciousness behind within the grids of Earth so that it can be used as a push-pull battery, like a push-pull energy, like a battery, so that it can be drawn upon when conscious needs it out of the grids of the Earth and then put back in. So I would just leave a part of my consciousness within the Earth grids to keep, to be used as and when it needs to be for times of help. And I'm just going to add one more thing to that. People always say, if you could go forward in the future, yeah, we're ascending, when would you go? And actually, from a heart space, I would go back to the summer of 1967, to the summer of love. And I would go back to Woodstock. I wouldn't go in time in the future. I'd go back to Woodstock. That's where I'd love to be. I'd actually go back in time. So I would leave.
Why?
Because it was it was one of the first real incredible explosions of consciousness in the 60s before it was suppressed again by dense energy. You know, all that explosion of love and music and creativity in the 60s, you know, it was consciousness was then, let's say the battle between light and dark. Dark started taking over a little bit more and squashed all of that. But that was one of the first real explosions with the first wavers. And I would like to go back and experience that first wave energy when it really started kicking off before it was squashed. So I would go back in time. But what would I leave? I would leave something non-physical, a part of my consciousness, so that others could draw it out of the grids if they need it at future references.
And can we already do that in terms of leaving that consciousness inside the Earth grids?
You're doing it right now. You're doing it right now. You know, when these big energies come in,
yeah,
you're anchoring light. You're a light anchor. It's coming down through your consciousness, down through your four bodies, and going into the grids. You're doing it as we speak in this interview. It's just some people are consciously doing it, some people are not consciously doing it. Some people know how they're doing it, some don't. But it doesn't matter either way.
Powerful. Alexander Quinn, I know this is the beginning of a lot of expansive and powerful conversations with you. Thank you for making this space today, brother. Really appreciate all that you're doing for us, for humanity, and really just creating a space where we can feel seen and heard in all of what you share, because I know that a lot of us already have this information somewhere in our body, somewhere in our field, but being able to have someone be a mirror to put words to it makes it all the more powerful. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
It's my pleasure being a permission slip for time being.
Yes. And looking forward to round 2 coming up soon.